You are recording.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today to discuss the Ventura River Trail improvements. This is our virtual community forum for the Clean California Local Grants Program. Today, to participate in the meeting, we are going to be using a mural board for activities. It allows you to zoom in on what we're presenting on the WebEx screen, but it also allows you to do some voting with us. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Brianne Alton. I'm an associate with Pacific Coast Land Design. We're located here in Ventura. We are a landscape architecture firm. I'm joined by our principal, Eric Berg, and Angel Cruz. Angel is going to be providing interpretation and translation services for those who may need it today. If you do need it, there is a subtitle translation available on the WebEx. If you're having problems with this function and you need to use it, please use the chat and we can show you how to use that. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So if everyone can click on the mural board link in the chat, but I will also be presenting on my screen. So today we are going to share background information about the grant program and the project that we've chosen. We're going to do some activities. We're going to go over our project goals, our design strategies for the project, the key areas of improvement on the river trail, existing versus proposed project photos to show you what some of these improvements might look like. And we're going to ask for you to pledge your support. So some helpful tips about today's meeting. This meeting will repeat every half hour. If you join this meeting late, or obviously if you're hearing this, you haven't joined it late, but if you want to just listen in, again, for the same information, perhaps maybe you want to hear the information again, we're going to repeat it every 30 minutes. The activities that we're doing are drag and drop exercises. So essentially, you'll be able to pick up objects and drop them in place to show your vote. If you need technical help, please put your questions in the chat and one of us will be able to help you. If you would rather just follow along and provide your feedback elsewhere, we have a Google survey that's available. This is the link right here, this form survey, if you would prefer to give us your feedback that way. So why the Ventura River Trail and why now? So in late of 2021, last year, a funding opportunity became available through the Caltrans Clean California Local Grants Program to fund California public space projects. This grant program is competitive and it gives preference to projects that have a large impact potential in underserved communities. Ventura's west side was identified as the largest area that fits this criteria, with the Ventura River Trail being the area of most public space improvement need. That would benefit both the west side to fit the grant criteria, but also that will benefit our city as a whole. If you want more information on Clean California Local Grants Program, there's a link here in the mural board where you can find more information about the program itself. Our application is due on February 1st, so in just a few weeks. Awards will be released by March 1st of 2022, and projects that are awarded must be completed by June 30th of 2024. So the improvements that we're showing you here today hinge on this application being awarded. If we are selected, we could be awarded up to $5 million for this project, and this project would need no additional funds from the city to complete the project. Today is the first of our outreach events. If this project is awarded, there will be more outreach events to get your feedback and your ideas. We want to hear from you, and your thoughts will be incorporated into this project. So we're going to start with our first activity. Eric's going to go ahead and bring everybody to the activity that's on the mural board now. We want to know where you live. So you don't have to be super precise. This is just about figuring out which area of Ventura you're logging in from, and you can drop a dot in your general area. So come over to the dots, you pick one up, and you just drag it into the area of your neighborhood. Let us know if you're having any trouble with this.
Looks like we have one person in the board. That's great. I see there's a few other attendees. In order to access the board, you can use the link in the chat if you're wanting to follow along.
And the board works just like an iPhone where you zoom in and out with your fingers, but instead you're scrolling with your mouse. We're going to move on to the next part, but you can continue to, if you haven't done this activity yet and you want to try it, it'll still be available to you. So I'm going to pass it over to Eric now to talk about our project goals.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Berg. Thanks, Brianne, for the introduction. I'm going to speak a little bit about the project goals for this project that dovetail very nicely with the goals of the Clean California Grant. There are four. The Clean California Grant really wants to see in the first project goal projects that reduce the amount of waste and debris on properties. And so this project is going to go about that in a few different ways. One of the largest is increasing the number of trash cans and receptacles along the trail, and it will also propose to include some signage to help find and locate those trash cans as well. The second goal is to enhance, rehabilitate, restore, or install measures to beautify the Ventura River Trail. This is beautification, so this is things like public art or planting trees, simple things fencing is a big one that comes up in this conversation. The third goal, enhance public health, cultural connections, and community placemaking by improving access to and on the Ventura River Trail for walking and recreation. To satisfy this goal, we're looking at opportunities to provide new points of access to the trail. You'll see that in a couple minutes when we talk a little bit more about the location-specific amenities, but really looking at adding a couple accessible entry points to the trail. And then the fourth goal, advance equity for Ventura's West Side community. That was kind of underlying in the grant applications, and choosing a project meant you were trying to do something in different criteria that categorize locations as underserved. The West Side met all of the criteria for that, so it seemed like the most logical and best place to apply, as Brian kind of mentioned earlier. We're going to go over to the fourth, which are the design strategies that we're employing to facilitate those goals, to meet those goals. And there are four different kind of overarching design strategies. We have wayfinding. Wayfinding isn't necessarily on the trail. It's going to be scattered throughout the West Side as a way to try and help people find the trail, to navigate to the trail. I know as a user in Ventura myself, finding the trail and finding points of access to get onto it is difficult if you don't exactly know where you're going. So installing a wayfinding system, signs throughout the West Side that help people find the trail and access it as a recreational amenity for residents and visitors across the city as a whole. There's contiguous design elements. By contiguous, we mean all the way along the proposed project stretch. That differentiates from nodes, which are in small little clusters. The contiguous design elements that we're proposing, there's really three of them. One, there's repaving the trail. The trail was first paved in the late 90s, and at 20 plus years old, it's still in pretty good shape, but for how much longer? There are some repair spots already on it, and the city doesn't have a steady funding source at which to apply for to repave that. This could be that opportunity, and since it's ending the end of its useful life, we view that as one of the opportunities. The second contiguous element is fencing. I kind of mentioned it earlier as a beautification opportunity, but a lot of the fencing along the stretch of the trail is in disrepair or falling down. Again, fencing is a very expensive item, and this is a wonderful opportunity to provide those upgrades. And the last, and probably one of the most functional upgrades for the trail, is the increasing or the addition of lighting. So this project is proposing to install solar light fixtures up and down the trail for that almost 2.5 mile stretch. The nodes. Nodes are areas, we're kind of calling them respite areas. You'll see a rendering of one, places that you can stop and take a break. There are long stretches of the trail where there aren't any trash receptacles, there aren't places to stop and get off the trail if you needed to, if you're walking, for example. If you're biking, you may not need them. You kind of go through pretty quickly, but there's long stretches where if you're walking, there's no shade, providing shade cover, that sort of thing. And then the last piece are park or park adjacent improvements. There are two parks right adjacent to the trail where we're looking at this. That's Sycamore Village and West Park. So Brianne's going to talk, or I think our next thing is going to be a poll. Brianne's going to kind of walk you through that while I get it set up for everybody.
So we want to know how you access the trail, and we want you to select the option that is most accurate for you, or the way that you access the trail most often. So either A, I access the trail by car and then I bike. B, I access the trail by car and then I walk. C, I walk to the trail. Or D, you mainly bike to the trail. We'll give everybody a little bit of time to vote.
I'll mention here, if you're just joining us, there's a link in the chat in the Miro board. That's how you can follow along with Brianne and I on the screen and access the poll that is happening right now. If you're just joining, we will be repeating this presentation every 30 minutes or so, and so you can catch the beginning later, as well as go through the activities again if you missed anything.
Okay, so we'll let the voting keep going on that if anybody's just accessing the Miro board for the first time. Next, we want to talk about the scope of improvements. So our project reaches from Ventura city limits of the trail, which is just north of Sycamore Village, down to Rex Dubbers, which is what's known as like the beginning of the trail. The trail actually goes out onto Main Street and connects to the Omar Range Trail, which takes you down to the beach. But for the purposes of this grant, we're focusing on the actual paved bike trail specific area. So the most northern location is this area up here. So you'll see the pictures connect with arrows down to the map below. And so we're focusing on two different major improvements at this location. The first being a bioswale. So there is a lot of runoff coming from the industrial use east of our project site that flows down onto the bike trail, and it's already kind of created a little bit of a creek. So no one was able to vote. If I'm seeing that one of our attendees put their vote in the chat, if you want to go ahead and vote that way, that works great. We can go ahead and take note of that. Thank you, and apologies if anybody had any trouble. So the water is flowing from offsite onto the trail, and it's creating almost like a little creek. This water then flows and then it hits a culvert or a large pipe that goes directly out to the Ventura River. We're wanting to create a bioswale, which is a planted, almost like a planted ditch that has bioinfiltration measures, which cleanses the water before it enters the pipe and goes out to the river. We also are looking to put a mural on the old flood protection wall. So this is an old flood protection wall for our levee to create, a cultural, a mural of cultural significance to welcome users to the city of Ventura. The next location is here at Sycamore Village. So there's some great curb ramps inside Sycamore Village that are meant to connect up to the trail, but as it is currently, people of all abilities are not able to access the trail at this location because it's a curb ramp to turf area. So adding accessible connections and some amenity upgrades like new trash cans that are able to hold trash for up to 2 to 3 months will be installed at this location. Various improvements to the intersection here at Stanley, including a rapidly flashing beacon, new paint for the crosswalk across, and lighting just to keep users of the trail safe that cross at Stanley. As Eric mentioned previously, a mid-trail respite station. So the idea that a lot of the trail is long and there's not places to stop that feel comfortable, feel safe. You might want to get off the trail to have some water or have a snack. So these locations will include shade, trash cans, and places to sit. And Eric's going to show a rendering of that here in a few minutes. Again, this idea of bioinfiltration, so cleansing the water before it hits the pipe and goes out to the river. Adding some accessibility and amenity upgrades at West Park. So currently There's this very steep path up to the trail, so adding a accessible ramp up to the trail so people of all abilities can access the bike trail at West Park. West Park has this nice parking lot that sometimes is underutilized, so we think that this is a great future location for a park and ride type situation for those that are accessing the trail by driving and then getting on their bikes or walking. South of the skate park, again, the idea of bioinfiltration. So there's a natural ditch that's created that kind of flows into a pipe that goes underneath the 33 again out to the river. So including a large area for bioinfiltration in this area, which would include trees and shade. And monument signage. So again, at this unofficial beginning of the trail, Ventura River Trail signage, which would alert users that this is where you get onto the trail. So at this time, we want to bring you back to the mural board again. This is under number 7. Eric's going to bring you over. We want to know where you access the trail. So where do you get on and off the trail? So you can pick up one of these stars and drag and drop it onto the trail. So if you're accessing the trail down at Rex Devers from other areas of the bike trail, then you would drop a star there. If you get on at Stanley, you would drop your star there. Maybe you like to ride your bicycle or walk to Ojai using the Ventura River Trail. You could also use a star there that you use the whole length of the river trail. We'll give everybody a few minutes to complete this. The link to the mural board is blank. Are you guys having trouble using the mural board link?
If you click on the mural board link, it'll probably take you to a page that says you're leaving the WebEx platform. Click on the continue and it should take you to the mural board. I've noticed a few other panelists have joined us, or attendees have joined. There is a link to the mural board in the chat, and we'll be repeating this presentation if you've missed anything at the beginning. So welcome.
We do have the ability, if you're not able to leave feedback on the mural board, whether technical difficulties or it's just too hard, you would rather just follow along, there is a survey that's available. So that's on the landing page that you came to the WebEx meeting, but we'll provide that link again for you in the chat as well.
And Brianne, this is Tracy. I just want to let you know that we are also saving the chat. So if anybody is replying within the chat, that will be provided to you.
Okay, wonderful. And this presentation is being recorded. So if you've missed anything and you can't stay on for the next 30-minute session, you will be able to come back and view it that way. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. You folks can continue to work on the activity if you want, or you can come back to it later. So Eric, would you like to talk about the improvements?
Sure. Under number 8, we provided a few before and afters, existing versus proposed renderings at a few locations along the trail, what some of these proposed improvements could look like. The northern one, or the top one on the top, is at West Park. So again, as Brianne kind of mentioned, West Park currently has a very steep access point that is not accessible. It's kind of scary, actually, especially if you're riding your bike, to get on and off there. This is a great location to add an accessible access point. This will also be in addition to the city is currently out to bid to install a new connection at Sheridan Way Elementary. So there'll be 2 great access points if this gets funded, really close to each other, increasing access for the west side there. Other things that would be included in this, as you can kind of see in the rendering, are like a little trail kiosk, providing maps, locations, information about the trail. Additionally, we've talked about trash cans and a bike you fix it station, a repair station where, say you have a flat tire, you can get off and you can work on your bike there. There's tools that are a part of that are standardized for bike repair. Kind of a neat little feature. The second rendering is, Brianne kind of mentioned the idea of these respite stations, or we mentioned these earlier. places along the trail that you can stop and take a break, especially if you're walking. There are long stretches of the trail. This one happens to be showing about halfway in between West Park and Stanley in a long stretch of the trail that is wide open without much shade. You can stop, pull off to the side. There'll be some shade, some new trees there. Additionally, some trash cans for people to deposit trash and recycle as well. The other big thing you can see in these renderings is the addition of lighting. So you can see the solar powered lighting fixtures and the new fencing, and additionally the new paving. Those are the contiguous design features that we mentioned earlier. And they make up the largest monetary chunk of the scope of improvements. The last rendering down at the bottom is just kind of showcasing this flood wall. This is a levee flood wall that has gotten graffitied. Seems like this is technically the city limits. It's the first place you cross into the city when you are coming from the north. It's a great place to do something that kind of welcomes you to Ventura and provides some cultural significance. The rendering shown on the right there is just a proposed idea. We'll work with a public artist to develop that further, but just something that's possible.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, and now we're going to go into our last voting session. So we're under number 9. Eric, if you could bring everybody over to where we're at currently. We want you to pick your top 3 favorite amenities. And these are the amenities that we've talked about thus far when describing the project. So the first would be ADA improvement. So this is improving access for people of all abilities to the trail. Asphalt repaving, as Eric mentioned earlier, the asphalt trail is reaching the end of its lifespan, and the city doesn't have a great pot of money to repave the trail. It's an expensive element, so we wanted to include that in the grant application, including public art. These bioswale areas, adding areas of native planting that can cleanse the dirty water that's coming from off-site before it hits the Ventura River. Boulders that would be used for seating at some of these node or respite locations. Environmental signage, so this tells the story of what we're doing from an environmental perspective on the trail, or could educate users about the flora and fauna that's native or endemic to our Ventura River Trail. Signage, reminding people to keep our community clean and to use the new trash receptacles that are provided. Adding project signage so people know that this is the Ventura River Trail, and it kind of cues people up to that this is an entrance for a public recreation corridor. Lighting, so adding lighting to the trail. So the lighting that we've used in this application is all solar lighting. So there would be lighting on the trail year round. So the trail can be used day or night year round. Trail kiosks. So these trail kiosks would have maps of the bike path in the area. So showing people how they can get on and off the trail and how they can access other trails and paths in the area. Trash cans, so giving people a place where they can add, they can put their trash instead of on the ground, and making sure that it doesn't hit the Ventura River. Trees, so adding shade for the trail itself. The Fix-It station, the West Park connection, as Eric was talking about. So if you have a flat tire or something, there's somewhere where you can prop your bike up and fix it, or add air to your tires. A water bottle filling station, so a place where you can add water to your water bottles and stay hydrated when you're out on the trail. And then wayfinding, this is a huge important element for adding equity for the west side. So letting people know how they can get onto the trail, queuing them up, and then also providing wayfinding to other services as well. There are these Post-its, so I see some people look like to be voting with Post-its, but you can click in the Post-it and leave comments. So if there's something that we haven't included here in this list of amenities that you would really like to see on the river trail, that we haven't already come up with, we want to hear from you. So use these Post-its to leave your comments, or if you have comments about any of these specific elements, that's welcome as well. And go ahead and continue to work on that. There's no time limit. We want to stay in touch with you. So as we are updated on the progress of our application, We want to be able to stay in touch. If everyone could please click on this link when you're done with the activities that we have here on the mural board. This is a chance for you to pledge support for our projects. The Caltrans Clean California Local Grants Program wants to know that you, the community, are in support of this project and in support of our application. So this gives you the opportunity to pledge support for the project. Provide your email address so we can stay in touch. If you wish, you can pledge your support and not provide your email address, and then leave any comments or questions that you may have so we can get back in touch with you. We are going to open up here in just a moment for 1 minute question and answer. So if you have a specific question about the application that we haven't covered today, or a comment that you want on public record, you'll have 1 minute to provide that comment. So this link provides a longer space for you to give your comment if you don't have enough time within your 1 minute. And like we've said, the grant awardees are going to be announced on March 1st of 2022. So here in just about a month. And we look forward to sharing the project updates with you and hopefully success of this application. So I'm going to end the screen share, and just a reminder, if anybody has joined in after our 1 o'clock start time, we are going to repeat this presentation. So if you want to hear our information about the project again, hang tight. We also have a video down here that we compiled while we've been out on the trail putting this project application together. It's a 5-minute video that shows the stretch of the trail, so a ride along from the Ventura city limits up at the north portion of the trail down to the Rex Dubbers, just so you can maybe get more familiar with the trail if maybe you're not familiar with the full length of the trail. At this time, please raise your hand if you have questions or comments, and Tracy will unmute you, and Eric and I will do our best to respond. Thank you so much for coming today.
Brianne, so far we have no one that has raised their hand.
Okay, we'll give it another minute or two, and then if nobody has any comments or questions, we'll go ahead and restart the presentation. Jan, I'm reading.
A couple.
Do you want to read those out loud, Eric?
Sure.
Kathy, we see your comment about half-mile trail markers. Those are in the project. So I'm sorry we didn't include them as one of the votable elements today, but we have included those for application and budgetary reasons.
And Brianne, there's another comment from Jan in there as well. And Mr. Whitehurst has raised his hand. So.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll handle Jan. Jan wrote that first, and then we'll go to the Whitehurst comment. So Jan had the question about the city of the trail over to Casita Vista Road. However, it appears the proposal is only for a part within city limits. That is correct, Jan. This is up to the city limits, not in the county property, for a few reasons. One is funding. It's a limited funding supply, and this application will be for $5 million up to the city limits. So you can imagine if we went farther, we would have to go over that amount of money requested. And the other reason is property ownership. So after the city limits, yes, the city maintains it, but property ownership actually gets kind of scary, or not scary. It's less clear with some more easements and who owns which property goes on up there. So.
And I have sent a request to Mr. Whitehurst, and he is unmuted.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Ron, we can hear you.
Oh, very good. Okay, we run the bug farm at near Ventura Avenue and Orchard Drive at the end of Orchard Drive. So we've got 300-foot frontage along the hike and bike trail. And so we've been working on building habitat and berms and swales along the trail. So it'd be great to kind of partner with what you're doing in the city limits. And your vision is really wonderful. Congratulate you on putting together some really good looking stuff. And we had put together a partnership of a number of different organizations to do greening on the trail. So it'd be interesting to have a conversation and see how we can engage, people like the Bike Hub and other organizations to facilitate the process and have some work days and that sort of thing. So we'd had a discussion with, was it Pete Schomburg?
Peter Schallenberger.
Schallenberger, yeah. And he had said that since there weren't berms and swales on the blueprint, that he couldn't do them, and he wouldn't let us to do them. So we'd like some clarification on that. My perspective is that that's a micro feature that could and should be added. That with a 10-foot wide asphalt strip running a number of miles, that's a lot of black surface area. So we need a lot of vegetation nearby and overhanging to mitigate the heat island effect, and certainly need some plants to absorb the runoff and to clean water before it goes into the creeks and into the ocean.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehurst.
I can speak a little bit to that, Ron. Thank you for those comments as well. Couldn't agree more. And I'm pleased to say that this is one of several efforts that are happening on the Ventura Bike Trail. You notice that the renderings we're showing are actually kind of devoid of trees and planting. One of the reasons for that is we are actually a part of another project working with the Housing Authority of the City of Ventura to do greening along that same stretch of trail. It's a separate trail. So again, looking from Rex Dubbers to Stanley in that stretch that will plant a lot of trees. That is actually a funded project in process coming soon. So that's good, as well as another grant project that was just awarded to help plant trees in that stretch as well. So
are there any other comments or questions that we can address? Jan, we'll share your comment about the easement in the city maintained area that's within county limits but isn't within city limits, and have somebody reach out to you. Thanks for that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the mural board again. Tracy, if you could share that link once again. At this time, anybody that heard the presentation that does not want to stick around for us to repeat information, feel free to go. Thank you so much for your participation today. We really appreciate it, and hope to be reaching out to you with good news very soon. Actually have to go all the way back. I apologize. So thank you everyone for joining. My name is Brianne Alton. I'm an associate with Pacific Coast Land Design. We are a landscape architecture firm located in Ventura, and I'm joined here today by Eric Berg, one of our principals, and Angel, who is providing interpretation and translation services for anyone who may need it. Today we're sharing project and grant program background, the funding information that is associated with the grant program that we want to share with you. We're going to do some activities via the mural board. So Tracy will be sharing that link in the chat if you're not already on the mural board. We're going to go over our project goals and design strategies. We're going to talk about the key areas of improvement on the trail. We are going to showcase some existing versus proposed project renders. And then we're going to ask you to pledge your support. Your support for our project is really important for us today. So some helpful tips. We are going to be repeating this project or this meeting every half hour. We are doing some activities that are drag and drop exercises. Please use the objects that are provided and drop at your desired element or location to vote. You can, if you are having technical difficulties and you want to be able to give your feedback and you haven't already, you can use the link provided below. It's a link to our Google survey. If you are having technical difficulties and you want to be able to use the mural board, please put your questions or comments in the chat and we will try to mitigate those issues for you. So why the Ventura River Trail and why now? So late last year, late 2021, a funding opportunity became available through Caltrans Clean California Local Grants Program to fund California public space projects. This grant program is competitive. It gives preference to projects with large impact potential in underserved communities. We identified Ventura's west side as the largest area that fits this criteria, and the Ventura River Trail was the area that had the most need for public space improvements that will benefit both the west side and our city as a whole. If you want more information on the Clean California Local Grants Program, you can click on the link in the mural board. So I'm on the mural board now. You can just click on that location. This application is due on February 1st, so we're currently working on completing it. And the grant awards will be released by March 1st of 2022. All project work, so if we are awarded, must be completed by June 30th of 2024. So in the grand scheme of things, it sounds like a long time, 2 years, but for projects to be designed and built, that's actually quite quick. So there's a high potential award of $5 million that could be implemented in a short period of time. There's no additional funds that would be needed by the city to complete this project. So this would be 100% grant funded. Today is the first of our outreach events. We do want to hear from you. Your input is important to us and we want to incorporate your needs and ideas into this project. If the grant is awarded for this project, there will be more community outreach events. So the first activity that we want to do today is we want to know where you live, and it doesn't have to be super specific. We don't need to know your address. We just want you to place a dot on the map about where you live in Ventura. We're trying to find out if you live on the west side, if you live somewhere else in Ventura. Perhaps you don't live in Ventura. Perhaps you live just outside city limits, or you like to use the bike trail and you're interested in the bike trail. And you can go ahead and drag your dot accordingly. So if you live maybe in Santa Paula, you could put it over here on the 126 or in Ojai up to 33. Give you a moment to check that out. So you're just picking up the dot and dragging it to where is most appropriate. You can continue to work on this. We're gonna move on. And I'm gonna toss it over to Eric to talk about our Ventura River Trail improvement project goals.
Thanks, Brianne. Welcome, everybody. If you're just joining us, we're going to keep going over this presentation. There's a link to the mural board in the chat to follow along. It's kind of self-guided too, so if you don't have time to spend, feel free to kind of go at your own pace, work through it. The only thing that won't be accessible to you in there is the poll that we're going to do here shortly, but the rest of the activities are available to you at your own leisure. Project goal number 1 for this project matches all these goals match the goals set out by the Clean California Grant Program. The first project goal is to reduce the amount of waste and debris adjacent to the Ventura River Trail. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the strategies we're going to do this, but one of the largest ones is providing more trash receptacles and project signage that would encourage people to deposit trash in the appropriate receptacles. Project goal 2 is to enhance, rehabilitate, restore, or install measures to beautify the Ventura River Trail. This project seeks as a goal to provide beautification. What is that? Things like murals, planting trees. Those things fall into the categories of beautification. Project goal number 3, enhance public health, cultural connections, and community placemaking by improving access to and on the Ventura River Trail. So really trying to find places to improve access for more residents to get access to. I'm sure many of you know that use the river trail, or some of you may not. It's not always the easiest place to find where you can get on from any place. So providing new access points and also wayfinding to help find the access points that already exist, so we can make the Ventura River Trail more accessible for more users. And then the last project goal, which is to advance equity for Ventura's West Side community. As Brianne mentioned, this grant is really targeting or trying to provide infrastructure improvements in underserved communities. And by doing so, you can, Ventura's West Side is one of the largest and most appropriate to meet that without having to provide additional match dollars. As Brianne mentioned, our current application will be 100% funded by the grant, which is only possible in underserved communities. We're going to move over to number 4, which is what are the strategies we're actually going to employ to meet those goals. We've categorized them as 4 broad levels of improvements. The first, as I kind of mentioned, is wayfinding. Can we provide signage throughout the West Side, a targeted wayfinding program that helps people, both residents of the West Side. I'm a Midtown resident, and I can tell you I would benefit from knowing where some connection points are, and anybody else who might need to. Where can you find access, either current access or some of our proposed new access points to the river trail? The contiguous design elements are those elements that we're proposing all the way along the scope of improvements, all the way from Rex Dubbers at the south end to the city limits just north of Sycamore Village. There's really 3 contiguous elements we're putting in that category, the first of which is paving, repaving the trail. The trail was originally paved in the late 90s when it was built. There has been patchwork on it now. It's in relatively good shape for being that old, but we know that it is approaching the end of its useful life as well. There's going to be more need to repair, and the city's other funding mechanisms aren't as available for a trail repaving, meaning that if we don't leverage the opportunities in grants, it may be a long time before that trail could be repaved. We view this as a tremendous opportunity. The second contiguous design element is fencing. A lot of the fencing along this stretch of the trail is in disrepair and is falling down. And so this is a tremendous opportunity to repair in kind and provide nicer, better fencing along that stretch, which is a very expensive improvement, again, that would be difficult to fund through other avenues. The third, and probably one of the most significant improvements that's being proposed, is solar lighting along the bike path, which we hope by providing will increase access throughout the day for families and residents along the West Side, particularly this time of year, where at 5 p.m. you may be want to ride home from work, or you might be leaving school late and it's already dark. Lighting would be a great enhancement to that and encourage more safe use of the trail during dark hours. The third type of improvements, so those are the 3 contiguous. The third types of improvements I'm going to talk about are nodes. Those are locational specific, and think of them as places to stop and take respite on the trail. There are several long stretches in the trail that currently exist where there is no place to stop. There are no trash cans, there's no shade, especially for people who are walking. If you're on a bike, it's fairly easy to cover this stretch of trail in a matter of minutes. You may not need to stop, but I've walked it many times, and on a hot, sunny day, without the shade out there, you might need a place that might need a place to stop and get out of the way of bikers that are oncoming. And the last level or design strategy are park or park adjacent improvements. The trail section that we're looking at has 2 city public parks directly adjacent to it. That's West Park and Sycamore Village, where we're proposing some better connections and amenities as well. So that we're going to do a poll. Brianne's going to kind of cue that up as I get it ready for people to take. It's number 5.
Yeah, so everybody venture over to number 5. I think Eric might bring you. So we want to know, how do you access the trail? And Eric's going to queue up a poll, and you're going to select the one that is the most accurate for you. So do you access the trail by car and then you bike? Do you access the trail by car and then you walk? Do you like to walk to the trail, or do you bike to the trail? Give a few minutes for this. And if you have,
I'll mention if anybody is just joining us, there's a link to this mirror board in the chat to participate in this poll. We are going to be repeating this presentation again in about 20 minutes or so. So you can catch the beginning of it. But if you want to follow along in the poll, if you are having any sort of difficulties, you can also use the chat function in the WebEx to provide your vote as well.
So the next thing that we're going to talk about, we're under number 6 now. And so these are the key areas for improvement along the Ventura River Trail. So we are using the full stretch of the Ventura River Trail within Ventura city limits. Here come the results. Great, thanks you guys for voting. Appreciate that. So the most northern part of the trail that's within our improvement scope is actually at Ventura city limits. There is a wall there that is part of our flood protection zone. It's part of our levee wall. This location is a great opportunity for a mural. We have also included an area for starting, so this is just adjacent to the wall, so it's just about there, would be the starting of a bioswale. So what's happening is the adjacent land ownership is an industrial site, as many of them are along the whole stretch of the trail. But this site in particular, there's quite a bit of runoff coming off the site and hitting the trail. This causes the trail to flood. It brings a lot of debris, oil, dirt onto the trail, and those substances actually flow down through this ditch or swale all the way to a culvert at Sycamore Village, and then it goes out to the Ventura River. And so what we'd like to do is we'd like this to become a bioswale, which we plant particular plants and we give it a certain structure so the plants are actually able to cleanse the water before it hits that pipe, goes under the 33 freeway and meets the Ventura River. So it's a way of keeping our river clean and then also keeping our ocean cleaner. The next spot we'd like to talk about is at Sycamore Village. So there's a couple great curb ramps that were provided when Sycamore Village was built, but currently there's no accessible access from those curb ramps onto the river trail. So people that are differently abled are not able to access the trail at this location. So there would be some simple elongations of like a sidewalk condition to get onto the trail at this location. We're also suggesting new trash cans for this park. And the trash cans that we're suggesting throughout the project, throughout the length of the trail, would hold trash for 2 to 3 months. There's an underground facility, and then the city is able to come in and empty those trash receptacles. So they have a lot more capacity, so they're less likely to be full when people need to add trash to them, and it makes it a lot easier for the city to maintain. The Stanley Trail intersection is another area for improvement. So we're including a rapidly flashing beacon, so improving the crossing condition here, adding lighting, new markings across the intersection, some repaving efforts. As we've mentioned, a respite station. So these are one of those nodes. So this is a long stretch of the trail where there's not a lot of tree coverage. There's not places to stop. And so there would be a location to sit, have a snack, grab some water, and not be on the main, the trail thoroughfare. And we actually have a rendering to show you what that might look like here in a second. Again, bioinfiltration, so cleansing the water before it hits the pipe or the culvert that goes out into the Ventura River and then hits the ocean. Improving the accessibility and some amenity upgrades at West Park. So currently, you can see that the connection to the trail is this pathway that's very, very steep. And so it's very inaccessible, even for somebody that isn't differently abled. So the major improvement here would be a new accessible improvement, and then also some amenity upgrades. And it's another one that we have a render to show you here in a second. South of the skate park, there is quite a large ditch that's currently filled with trash and debris, and that is also a culvert or pipe location that goes under the 33 and hits the Ventura River. The idea would be to add planting, cleanse the water, and areas for people to properly dispose of their trash instead of in the landscape. And then finally, adding monument signage, and this isn't the only location, but this is the one that we wanted to highlight for you. So this the actual connection or the start of the Ventura River Trail is at the end of the Omar Range Trail over close to Patagonia, where there's that parking lot that takes you out to the beach. But this is the trail as a lot of people know it, like the entrance to the trail. So adding signage so that people see that this is the Ventura River Trail and welcomes people onto the path. So at this time, we want to do another activity. So Eric's going to go ahead and welcome you guys back over here to number 7. We want to know where you access the trail. So if you could drag and drop a star where you get on the trail, where you get off the trail. Maybe there's multiple locations. Maybe sometimes you access from one location and other times you access from another location. So again, the entrance to the trail is down here at Rex and Dubbers and then goes all the way up up here to this northern location. Maybe you like to use the trail to ride to Ojai, so you could put a star at that location too, because technically you're exiting this portion of the trail at that location. So feel free to use as many stars as you need. I'll give you all a few minutes to complete this activity.
Like I mentioned a few times, if anyone is just joining us, you can go ahead and follow along. We'll be restarting this presentation in a matter of minutes and go through some of the earlier exercises again. The link to the Miro board is in the chat where you can join us. You would have to click through. It'll ask you, if you do click on it, to leave the WebEx platform, but it should come up right there. And you kind of use Miro as if you were just scrolling around with your mouse. You can pan around. Click on things, that sort of thing. You should be able to use it on mobile devices as well. Might be a little harder to zoom and grab elements, but you should be able to use it.
And if you're just joining us, there is going to be a time at the end of the session where we'll take 1-minute question comments and answer any questions you may have about the project or the application. There will be other opportunities to leave feedback as well. We're going to go ahead and move on. So if you're still completing that exercise, feel free to keep working. I'm going to toss it over to you, Eric, to talk about some of our proposed improvement areas.
Yeah, under number 8, we have some existing versus proposed renderings of what a few of these locations and improvements along the trail could look like. The first of which is at West Park. As we mentioned earlier, the connection at West Park is a really steep sidewalk that doesn't really provide accessible access. I rode it on my bike yesterday and almost ran into the fence. Not a great place to get on and off the trail. So seems like a tremendous opportunity to add an accessible access point at that location. As well as at that access point, almost treat that parking lot as if it were a little park and ride for anybody who may want to drive over to the trail and then ride their bike to Ojai. Other than the city's parking lot down at Ventura Avenue, there aren't great places to park and then ride. And along with that, having a trail kiosk that would show the whole length of the Ventura Parkway from Ventura all the way to Ojai, a few amenities and more information about the trail, as well as trash receptacles and some planting, some tree shade there as well. You'll also see the contiguous elements I discussed: new trail paving, the lighting. You'll see a couple of those light fixtures and the fencing in that rendering. The second one, we lost the existing, it got moved, but I can move it back, not a problem. Thanks, Brianne. We didn't lock that one in place. But the second one shows one of those mid-area respites. This is halfway in between West Park and Stanley, where there's a long stretch without any shade. So providing a place along that stretch to get off the trail, have a sit. There's trash receptacles at that location. Again, here you can see the solar lights along the trail and the new fencing and the new paving as well. You see that there's trees to provide shade through that stretch as well. And then the last rendering is up at that northern flood wall. Again, Brianne mentioned that the northern end is the flood wall and the levee. It's been graffitied and painted many times, as you can see, and it provides a tremendous opportunity to welcome anybody riding the trail into the city of Ventura. This is right on the city, the technical city limits. So the project, if awarded, would work with an artist to provide a mural for that location as part of the beautification goals for the grant.
And this rendering's showing too, like where that bioinfiltration may be happening and the new fencing that would start at this location along the trail. So at this time, we're going to bring you guys over to number 9 to pick your top 3 favorite amenities. So you can use a triangle for your top 3 to drag and drop them in the box that you like the most. If there's something that we haven't included that you would like to see as an element on the bike trail, you can go ahead and double click on one of these post-it notes and type in there your idea about the bike trail. If you have a comment about one of the specific elements, say there's a certain type of tree you like, or there's a certain type of trash can you want, you could go ahead and drag and drop a post-it over to the specific element with your comment. The amenities that we've chosen for the application thus far include ADA improvements. So again, these are paving improvements that allow access for people of all abilities to get on and use the trail. Asphalt repaving. So I think we've talked a little bit about how the trail is reaching its expected lifetime, and the city does not have a large pot of money set aside to repave the trail. So this application would provide the resources, the monetary resources to repave the trail throughout. Art, so adding the mural of some type of cultural significance for the west side and for the river trail. Bioswell planting, so again, this is planting in specific areas where we want to cleanse the water before it hits those pipes or culverts and goes under the 33 and out to the Ventura River. We've included boulders for seating. So in some of these respite nodes, so people that are getting off their bikes, so they have a spot to sit down and enjoy the shade. Environmental signage. So this would be an opportunity to educate people about the flora and fauna on the river trail or adjacent to the river trail, as well as tell some of the environmental story of what we're doing with things like the bioswales. Adding no litter signage to the site, so to remind people to use the trash receptacles that are provided. Project signage, so again, like at Rex Debbers, adding some monument signage to let people know this is the river trail, this is where you get on, and welcome people to the space. Adding solar lighting, so adding the solar lighting throughout so that the river trails can be used day or night, 365 days a year. Adding trail kiosks, so these would be used primarily to show people where they can get on and off the trail, how they can access other trails in the area, and then any significant other information that they might need to know. Trash cans, so adding trash cans throughout so people have a place to put their waste, so the waste isn't ending up in the Ventura River or on the trail itself. Trees, so adding trees for shade to combat the urban heat island effects. Fix-it stations, so places where people can add air to their tires or fix a flat. A water bottle station, so this would be at West Park, so people can fill up their water bottles while they're on the trail, have a clean source of drinking water. And wayfinding, so wayfinding is an important element because what it does is it shows people how to access the trail. So there's a large community living on the west side, and all the places where to access the bike trail aren't necessarily prevalent and known, and so wayfinding not only helps local people, but also people that are coming to the river trail for the first time know where they can get on and off and what's around the trail. Okay, and before we open up for questions and comments, we'd like everybody to click on this link. This is a link to a really simple Google form, and this is to pledge your support for the project. Part of what the grant application is asking for us to do today is to get community support from all of you. So it's just a place to pledge your support. There's also a box where you can leave a more robust comment or question, and then a space to leave your email address. So if you want to stay in contact on the project, you want to get project updates if we were to be awarded, this is a way we could stay in touch with you. Please leave your email address, but by pledging your support, you don't have to leave your email address or vice versa. So thank you everyone for participating. At this time, if you have a question or comment that you'd like to raise, please raise your hand in the WebEx. I'm going to go ahead and end the screen share. This mural board is a public link, so you can access this now or later, share it with friends. So I'm going to stop sharing. And then, yeah, we'll go back over to the WebEx. If anybody has any questions. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
There's a couple questions. Ron Whitehurst asked if there's any access or opportunities for river access, the highway. And in this project, the answer is no. And the primary reason for that is time frame. This had a very short time frame in both the application and the implementation. And so one of the things we had to try to target were opportunities that could not only be done quickly, but also fell within the funding guidelines, the $5 million. Some of those river access ideas have been around and well aware of, but they're a little less formalized at this point. So trying to get an application in, a competitive application in around that and develop the community support around that would have been a challenge, as additionally implementing it on the back end.
Yeah, I'll add that there is a lot of great conversation that's coming in, a lot of great comments about the opportunity to open up public access to the Ventura River. And that's great feedback. And that's something that is wonderful to hear. Unfortunately, as Eric's saying, because of the stipulations around this grant, the timeline, the property ownership, there's lots of different complications that I think getting access to the river trail is going to have to be a more robust effort, but it's wonderful to hear the conversations around that.
Do we have anyone with their hand raised?
You do. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's Aja or Aha. I'm gonna go ahead and request to be unmuted, and she's able to speak.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my name is Asia Bulla Richards, and I work with Watershed Progressive, and we're partnering with the Ventura Resource Conservation District and other partners under a VRIF grant. It's a Ventura River Stream Flow Enhancement Grant from the Wildlife Conservation Board. We've been conducting an analysis of the whole trail, looking for the best opportunities for projects that would benefit the watershed health and enhance stream flow. So I just wanted to make sure to connect with you and just make sure we're, coordinating efforts and leveraging efforts and not duplicating efforts, because it is such a complicated project, so many different stretches. And I guess with my question, I'm wondering, because it's only one stretch of the trail, how amenities like the lighting would then, be continued along the trail, if there's any kind of plan for that. I mean, it seems like they would abruptly stop. And so I'm just wondering if there's kind of longer term planning for how to make a more cohesive experience along the whole trail.
Thank you, Asia. That's great. That's a great question. We've kind of looked at lighting. So the first part of your comment, we are actually a part of several conversations going on right now, even over the top of this small section of the trail, let alone the entire stretch of the trail. It is because of its location, the underserved community. It is an easy. It looks. How do I want to say this? On a map, when you look at it, it becomes like, oh yes, we can spend some money there because it qualifies for a lot of the grants that are coming out. And so we're a part of actually 2 or 3 other grant applications that are focusing on the same area, and we're trying to overlay those. So yes, let's coordinate for sure, because some of the things we're talking about in here are stormwater enhancements, stream flow enhancements with the bioswales in critical areas that have flood protection overlays as well. So it's going to be important that we have those conversations. In regards to the lighting, understand your comment about it abruptly ending. We hope that this becomes a blueprint for lighting along the trail. The nice thing about the lighting we're proposing is it is a solar fixture. It's actually a fixture recommended by Los Angeles County, has been approved by or City of Los Angeles. We think it's a great opportunity to start that trend. There haven't been any plans for it in a wider stretch, but it's got to start somewhere. And hopefully this can become kind of a blueprint for that.
Asia, I have your contact information because we actually crossed paths on a Ojai School District project. So I'll go ahead and reach out to you after today's conversation so we can set up a time to hear about the groups that you're working with, their plans on the river trail or adjacent to the river trail. But thank you for attending today and bringing that to our information. We definitely want to collaborate.
Jan brought up the boundary of the disadvantaged community is Shell Road, not the city limits. So this grant can include going farther north. The community can help persuade the adjacent landowners to want to cooperate. You are correct. One of the disadvantaged criteria does go up to Shell Road, Jan. However, the application criteria, because of the way the grant is written, that this grant is using to qualify for its 0% match criteria, is actually free and reduced school lunch programs at both EP Foster and Sheridan Way Elementary. So if we provided a continuous experience up to Shell Road, we could probably still qualify the project. But again, the funding is somewhat limited. So it takes a lot of money to provide the scope of improvements, especially those contiguous, those 3 ones I mentioned: lighting, fencing, and paving. Are, $5 million seems like a lot of money, but it goes very, very fast when it comes to those sorts of improvements. I think right now $1 million of the total budget goes into fencing, which if you've been following material prices over the last year, steel and fencing materials has more than doubled in the last year. The unit price for a nice linear fence is somewhat to $80 to $90 a linear feet per linear foot. So it goes up very quick. And unfortunately, we can't go. And I kind of mentioned the property ownership earlier. That was another factor that just kind of said, let's focus here where we can make the most impact now, and there's less question. Don't disagree with you that we need to do more north of the city limits at all. Can be future conversations. Got to start somewhere.
We're hoping, so I've attended all the grant workshops, and we're hoping that this is the first of maybe more grant award cycles. So a lot of times when grants are first announced, there's one period, there's one grant award, and it becomes the first of many cycles. So there's a lot of opportunity if this is the first grant application if we are to be awarded, that it could set the groundwork for potential extensions of this project work. But as Eric said, the property ownership part of this, and them wanting to have really clear documentation that the application that you are writing for is the area that you own, was something that is kind of like a pass or fail from the application standpoint. And so we were somewhat limited to stay within what the city owns. If we were to use area where there's like say it's county owned and city maintained, then that's actually a sub application. And because of the time frame that we've put this application together in the last like 6 weeks, it was somewhat limiting. So we're somewhat doing the best we can with the time that was allotted by the grantor, and because it's a huge opportunity, $5 million in funding is a huge opportunity that the city did not want to miss out on. Are there any other hands raised, Tracy?
No, there are no other hands.
Okay. So at this time, for those of you that joined the presentation partway through, we're going to go ahead and repeat the presentation one more time. And at the end of that presentation, we'll open up again for comments and questions. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Brianne Alton. I'm an associate with Pacific Coast Land Design. We are landscape architects located in Ventura. I'm joined here today by Eric Berg. He's a principal from our studio, as well as Angel. Angel is providing translation and interpretation services if someone may need it throughout the presentation. Go ahead and get started. So today we're going to share a project and grant program background. The grant program is providing the funding for the project. We're going to share about our project goals for the Ventura River Trail Improvements Project, the design strategies that we're utilizing to put together the application, the key areas of improvement. We're going to show some existing and proposed project photos. And lastly, we are going to ask for you to pledge your support of the project. So this meeting is repeating every half hour. This is the third time that we're going through the presentation. If you are on a limited timetable and you want to go through at your own pace, please do, or you can wait for the end for us to restart the meeting. The activities that we're doing today are drag and drop exercises. So please use the object that we've provided and drop at your desired element or location to vote. If you need technical help, you can put your questions in the chat and we'll do our best to help you. General questions and comments will be held until the end of the presentation. At that point, attendees will be given the opportunity for a 1-minute spoken question or comment. If you would rather just follow along and provide your input via our more simple Google survey, that's available using this link here on the screen. And you should be able to click on that and use that, but we'll also provide it for you in the chat. And please, if you're just tuning in, please use the chat to get the link to the mural board that I'm showing here. So why the Ventura River Trail and why now? So in late 2021, we came across a funding opportunity that became available through Caltrans. It's the Clean California Local Grants Program, and it's been put in place to fund California public space projects. And if you want more information about the program itself, I'm just going over the highlights. There's a link provided here. So I'm under number 1 right now on the mural board. The grant program is competitive and it gives preference to projects with large impact potential in underserved communities. Ventura's west side was identified as the largest area that fits this criteria, and the River Trail was identified as the area that had the most need for public space improvements that benefit both the west side and our city as a whole. This grant application is due in just a few short weeks on February 1st, with awards released by March 1st of 2022. The project, if it is awarded, would need to be completed by June 30th of 2024. And that is quite a short timeline to be awarded and the turnaround, but there's a high potential reward here, up to $5 million. So if this project is awarded, the west side, the river trail, our city could see an improvement of $5 million in infrastructure. Today is the first of our outreach events. We want to hear from you. Your input is important to us. We're really happy that you're here or tuning into this recorded meeting. If we are awarded, there will be many other outreach events where your input will be added into the projects. So our first activity is we want to know where you live within Ventura. So if you live outside of Ventura, that's okay too. We want to see where you live in proximity to the project. There's no need to be specific. Just general vicinity of your neighborhood is great. Place a dot where you live. So it's you just pick up the dot and you drag it to the area in Ventura or outside of Ventura city limits where you live.
Again, if to follow along with this exercise, the link to the mural board is in the chat. If you click it, you'll be asked to leave the WebEx and you'll just have to click through that link and it should take you straight there. We're on activity number 2 and we'll be kind of following on. It's set up so that you can kind of follow along at your own pace. You could share this link with friends. It is a public link and they can follow along. The only activity that we're kind of doing in the moment is the poll that we'll be doing shortly, but the rest of the activities you can proceed and participate with at your own leisure.
Yeah, and if you're having, if you need a little bit more time to finish this activity, go right ahead. I'm just going to continue on with the presentation because of time. So at this point, I'm going to toss it over to Eric for Eric to talk about our River Trail project goals.
Thanks, Brianne. Again, my name is Eric, principal with Pacific Coast Land Design. The Clean California grant is clear in its project goals, and so finding a project and building a project around those project goals was critical. So the goals for this project closely matched the Clean California grant goals, the first of which being to reduce the amount of waste and debris. The application is clear that it wants projects that focus on waste reduction and eliminating litter and trash in public places. So we're going to talk a little bit in a few minutes about the ways we're trying to achieve these goals, but one of the primary ones to achieve project goal is the addition of more trash cans and receptacles along the trail. Project goal number 2, enhance, rehabilitate, restore, or install measures to beautify the Ventura River Trail. This is a beautification goal. Things like murals or planting trees, other things that enhance the visual aesthetic and the quality of the space are outlined in project goal number 2. Project goal number 3, enhance public health, cultural connections, and community placemaking by improving access to and on the Ventura River Trail for walking and recreation. To achieve this goal, we're really looking at opportunities to provide more connection to residents of the West Side, to residents of the city as a whole. Current connections are limited and also not very well identified. You may not know the best place to get on the trail. There are some connections that are kind of hidden that do exist. So one aspect of this goal that we'll talk about in a second is wayfinding. Can we provide a way for residents to better locate, residents of the entire city, to better locate places to access that trail for walking and recreation, biking. Project goal number 4 is an advance equity for Ventura's West Side community. I'm going to move over to the Ventura River Trail Improvement Design Strategies under the heading number 4. We have 4 kind of design strategies. I mentioned briefly wayfinding. This is the addition of signs and wayfinding elements throughout the West Side that would increase access or information about access to the trail for users throughout the city. The contiguous design elements is the big one. Of which there's 3. These are elements that span the entire stretch of the project limits. The first of which is repaving the trail. The trail itself was first installed in the late 90s, 1998. The paving there is over 20 years old and it's doing okay, but it has been repaired in places. It is ending the end of its useful life, and this provides a tremendous opportunity to repave that trail. An opportunity that may not come again for a while. The city doesn't have an easy source of funding to repave the trail, so we're really viewing this as an opportunity to do that now. One of the second contiguous design element is enhanced fencing. Some of the fencing along the stretch, particularly in between West Park and Stanley, is in failing shape. It's falling down. It presents honestly a safety implication in a couple opportunities. That is one of the elements that is targeted by the grantor, is providing enhanced aesthetics through better fencing. And we think this is a tremendous opportunity to replace that fencing, which again is something that's going to cost a lot to replace at some point, and this is a great opportunity to do it now. And the third, potentially most practical, useful implementation of this grant will be lighting. Installing solar lights to enhance trail access and usability through all hours of the day, especially think this time of year when it gets dark so early, using that trail and providing a safe environment for all users to access more recreation, or if you use the trail to walk to and from school or to and from work during those hours when it gets dark pretty early. Nodes are little places along the trail. They aren't continuous, but the little pockets along the trail. There are long stretches of this trail where there isn't necessarily a place to get off and stop, particularly in between West Park and Stanley, providing a little place for you to stop that you could sit. There's shade there and trash cans as well, kind of going back to that first goal. And then the last design strategy are what we're calling park and park adjacent improvements. There are 2 public parks adjacent to the park, Sycamore Village Park and West Park, that provide opportunities to enhance access to the trail itself. So with that, we're going to move on to our poll, which is under number 5. I'll bring everybody over and Brianne's going to kind of cue it up.
Yes, so we want to know how do you access the trail? We want you to select the option that's like the most true for you, or the most accurate, the one that you use the most. So please go ahead and join the poll voting, and select either A, I access the trail by car and then I bike. B, I access the trail by car and then I walk. C, I walk to the trail. Or D, I bike to the trail. Okay. And that's going to continue the time a little bit longer if you need a little bit more time. We're going to go over to number 6, which is highlighting the key areas for improvement along the river trail. So the first location is at our most northern extents. It is a future Bioswell location. Okay, here come the results. Doesn't look like anybody cast any votes, and we just might not have anybody left that hasn't voted yet. If you had trouble using the voting function, you can use the chat. We'll be getting a copy of the chat as well, and we can go ahead and tabulate those votes manually. So the first location is our most northern extents of the project, and that is at a location where a little like ditch, or almost like a small creek, has begun to form, and it's because of water that's flowing from the eastern land use. So east of the trail here, it's an industrial land use where a lot of water is coming off of their property and it's hitting the site. And because it's an industrial land use, there's a lot of dirt, debris, oil that's probably flowing off site and hitting the bike trail. This can also cause flooding too, because the way that the ditch is created, it can't hold a lot of water if it becomes inundated by a storm. So we are proposing what's called the bioswale, or a formulated ditch that would have certain components so it could hold up over time, and also planting that would cleanse the water that's hitting the swale as it moves downstream. This swale in particular is quite long. It goes from this location all the way down to Sycamore Village, where it hits a pipe or a culvert, and that goes underneath the 33 and eventually winds up in the Ventura River. So we're trying to cleanse the water before it hits the river and eventually hitting the ocean. At this location, there is also a wall that's a part of our flood protection area, or our levee, that is currently tagged and could use some public art. So we think this is a great opportunity for a piece of art of cultural significance that welcomes people to the city of Ventura, and it would be art that would be done by public artists. At Sycamore Village, just south of this location, where that bioswale would meet up at the culvert and go under the freeway back out to the river, there's also some need for accessibility and amenity upgrades. So we need better access for people of all abilities to be able to get onto the trail here. We have this great curb ramp, but it hits a turf area, and then there's no access to the trail. That's the trail over there. So what we want to do is we want to add an accessible route of travel for people to be able to get to the trail. We're also including new trash cans at this location. So throughout the project, it's one of the continuous elements is adding trash cans throughout. And these would be trash cans that can hold 2 to 3 months worth of trash. So it's not something that's going to overflow easily, and it's something that it is easier for the city to maintain in a timely fashion. We've also included the Stanley Trail intersection for improvements. Here we would be improving the crossing condition by adding a rapidly flashing beacon that is more visible. It makes it safer for people to cross, as well as some repaving, restriping, and lighting efforts. Mid-trail, there's quite a long distance between stopping points, and so we want to create a place for people to feel safe to stop, to get off of the main thoroughfare and maybe hop off their bike, have some water, have a snack. So these spaces include shade, they include somewhere to throw your trash, and we actually have a rendering of this coming up so we can show you what this might look like. Again, an area for bioinfiltration, so an area that is constructed to cleanse the water before it hits the pipe, goes under the 33 and meets the Ventura River. Improving accessibility and adding amenities at West Park. So this location is one location that people get onto the bike trail, but it is inaccessible to people that are differently abled. And so the idea here is to add a ramp that goes up and meets the trail accessibly. Also, this would include a new node, and it's another spot where we're going to show you a render in a second of what that might look like. South of the skate park, so adding another area for bioinfiltration, for planting that would cleanse the water before it hits the river. This area would also include new shade trees. And then at Rex Dubbers, adding trail monument signage. So this is a sign that would alert people overhead that this is the Ventura River Trail. This is where you get on the trail. And for all intents and purposes, this is like the view start of the trail. The actual start of the trail is actually at the end of the Omar Range Trail at the parking lot. Like that's very close to Patagonia, right near the 33 overpass. But this is the actual start of our project limit. So it's here on the southern end. So at this time, we'd like to do another activity. So we want to know primarily where you access the trail. So we want to know where you get onto the trail and where you get off of the trail. So if you like to ride to Ojai, or maybe you live north of the site, you could drop a star there. Maybe you like to park over off Olive and get on at Stanley. Maybe you like to park at West Park and get on the trail. Maybe you live in the neighborhood and you use the Riverside connection. So go ahead and use as many stars as you'd like to show where you get on and off the trail. And for anybody that has joined, we are almost through our presentation. There's a mural link in the chat where you can access the board that we are showing the presentation through, so you can participate in the activities.
It's also a public link that you can feel free to share with your friends. They can follow along and participate. We'll monitor it for the next little while too, and see if anybody's got in and added some more information.
So
under number,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say under number 8, I'll talk a little bit about the proposed amenities. We've created a couple different proposed renderings of what the trail could look like with the proposed conditions that we've been discussing. So the top one is at West Park, which we've been mentioning. West Park currently has an access point, but it is very steep and not accessible. And so this would propose adding an accessible ramp that is wide enough for bikers to use safely. The one is very narrow that's there now. It'd be wide enough you can use it to get up and down off of the trail, off that steep access point. This will coincide with a current city project. It's out to bid to install a new access point just north of this at Sheridan Way School. So with the combination of the two, West Park will become kind of a hub of activity and access for points of connection to the west side or to the trail. Also at this location with the West Park parking lot right there, we feel like this is a great opportunity to almost serve as kind of like a park and ride your bike. If people want to drive over and park and then use the trail to ride to Ojai for the day or something like that, there aren't a lot of places in the city you could do that. This is provide a tremendous opportunity for that. And along with that, having like a trail kiosk that would show you where you're at, some more information about the trail, things that might be going on along the trail, and then trash cans and some shade trees, as we've discussed. There's also a proposed like a U-Fix-It bike station, an area where if you have a flat tire, you can pull off. There's tools there. You can fix your own bike tire. Anybody who has those skills, you can kind of see it in the shade tucked in back there. The second rendering is one of the respite stations we've discussed. This is about halfway in between West Park and Stanley in a long stretch that doesn't have any shade or places to stop. So just providing a place for people to stop and sit that has some trash cans and some shade. help to break that up, especially if you're walking. If you're riding your bike, it's not too hard to make it from Stanley to West Park. But on a long hot day, I've done it. There isn't really a place to stop and take a break or get out of the way of oncoming bikers that may be coming through that stretch. The last rendering down the south we've talked a little bit about is the flood wall at the very northern extent of the city limits as it hits the trail. At this location, you can see the wall has been tagged and painted over many times. This is a tremendous opportunity to provide some public art that serves as a gateway into the city of Ventura. So we'd work with the public if the application gets awarded, work with the public artist to come up with this. This is just some concept art that's on here. So and then kind of in the background of that rendering, you can see the bioswale that we discussed on the left there. In all of these, you can see the new paving, the new fencing, some of the what the lighting is proposed to look like.
So at this time, we want to know what are your top 3 amenities. So please use the triangles that are underneath the dialog box here, drag and drop them to your favorite amenities. If the amenity that you'd like to see on the bike trail isn't listed, double click inside the post-its and leave us a comment about what amenity you'd like to see. If you have comments about some of the amenities that we have provided for voting, you have a specific comment of like what you want it to look like, feel like, or be themed around, you can also write a comment in the post-it and then drag it onto the amenity board. So just to go over real quickly, the elements that are for voting are ADA improvements. So those are to provide access or better access to the bike trail for people of all abilities to access the bike trail. A new asphalt paving. So this is to replace the asphalt paving that exists in kind. The trail is reaching its usable life, the end of its usable lifespan. And the city does not have money allocated to repave the trail. So this grant would repave the extent of the trail that we've talked about today. Adding community art to the project of cultural significance, bioswales, plural, with native planting that'll help cleanse the runoff that's coming from the industrial sites to the east, or water that's hitting the site itself. Boulders, which is alternative seating, so a place for people to sit down and rest after being on their bike all day. Environmental signage, so signage that could talk about the flora and fauna of the trail and the area surrounding the trail, and perhaps tell the story of how the bioswales adjacent to the bike trail are cleansing stormwater. No litter signage. So this signage would remind people to use the trash cans instead of disposing their trash elsewhere. Project signage, so monument signage that would alert the user to that this is the bike trail and would establish some sort of theme for the bike trail. Solar lighting, so this is lighting that would be completely off grid and that would keep the bike trail usable day and night, 365 days a year. Trail kiosks, so these would primarily be used to show the extents of the trail, the connection points, and where people can get on and off to better use the trail. Trash cans to help keep trash off the trail and out of our waterways and in the trash can. Trees to mitigate the urban heat island effect and shade the trails just so it's a more pleasurable experience for users. Adding a U-Fix-It station at West Park so people can add air to their tires or work on their bikes if they need to. A water bottle station, so you can fill up your water bottles with drinkable, drinking water and stay hydrated. And wayfinding signage, this is really important for both the west side and also for users throughout to know how to access the bike trail and what other elements that the bike trail connects to. And so at this time, we're going to invite you to use the link that's here on the board. This is a really short Google form where you can pledge your support for the project. The grantor is asking us to have community members pledge support of the project in our application. You can provide your email address if you want to stay in touch with us for future communications around this project and application. And there's also a space where you can leave a longer comment or ask any questions that you might not get answered here today. And we're going to open up for question and answer. If you have any questions, please use the raise your hand feature inside WebEx, and we'll be happy to answer your questions and take any comments. You can also type your question into the chat and we can answer them there as well.
Brianne, we do have an attendee that would like to ask a question. I've sent a request to have them unmute themselves.
Okay.
Oops.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. My name is Sofia Rubalcava, and I serve on City Council. I'm the mayor, and I actually represent this district. So I just want to, first of all, thank you all for the presentation and for all of the work that has gone into this. This is super exciting, and it's a great project, and I know that the community is definitely supportive of it. And I guess my question is, what else can we do, and can I do, and members of the community, what else can we do to support this project and just strengthen the application so that we can show our support?
Awesome. Thanks, Sophia. Thanks for attending today. I've seen your little cursor floating around. Really appreciate your support of the project. I'm asking for letters of support. So technically, you're part of our city's infrastructure. So you're part of, I guess, who is applying for the application, but to have a letter of support from the mayor would be fantastic. So I will get in touch with you of what we're asking for in those letters of support. At this time, having this event, despite COVID precautions, that's why we had to do it online today, and having so many community members attend, and we've been getting great feedback. We have over 100 survey responses so far. So just continuing to share the online tools for feedback and get that support from people is what we're asking for and what would be beneficial to strengthen the application.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll make sure to continue sharing it, and let's see if we can get more people to respond and to provide support for this application. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you, Sophia.
So at this time, we'll keep the meeting room open for the next 20 minutes. If there's any questions or comments, we would be happy to answer them. We don't have enough time to go through the presentation again, but we'd be happy to go through any specific parts if you're just tuning in that you've missed. Otherwise, please leave your comments and your feedback on the mural board and use the links provided to give us any comments or questions. We thank you for your attendance today.
You guys did a great job. And I tell you, that mural board is, wow, it's fun, you know, and you can watch things populate, and I'm really impressed, and I hope we get to use it again soon for another project that we're going to be working on. But again, really appreciate you guys. You did a wonderful job. I'm really pleased. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Nancy.
Awesome. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for helping us make this happen. And Nancy, the really cool thing about the mural board is it could become a link as well that sits on the city landing page. It's something that we can use in addition to when we go back to having in-person events, just another way to gain feedback. And this is just one template. There's lots of different things we can do with the mural board. So I'm glad that you liked it.
Well, you know, definitely one of the things that I'm sure you guys feel the same way, that, you know, what we've learned through COVID is that when we come back, we're coming back hybrid, you know, no matter what, because there's still going to be people that are going to be really comfortable with being able to be in their jammies and or sitting outside, or they're on their phone and they've got the access to a meeting and be able to participate. So I think things like this is definitely a process that we're going to use going forward. I will make sure to working with Tracy and then working with our team so that our links are on our pages, and that we can get something out this week, some sort of media post, social media post, so that we can remind people that they can still, they can see the mural board, and then they can also do the survey, because we still have, another week or so. So we would love to be able to get some more comments.
Excellent. Yeah, I know Peter included the link of the Spanish survey once that became available, I think on Wednesday. But I think this is a great opportunity to add the mural board to the landing page too, because people can get more information about the project without having to sit through the recording and watch us talk about it.
True.
Yeah, we came across it right at the start of COVID because we couldn't do those community engagement events anymore where you put all the dots on the board and do that. So we had to find another way. All of the grant applications that we work on want to use community engagement for just cause, and that's really hard to do in a pandemic. So this has been a very useful tool for us. And additionally, we also just use it internally when we're just collectively brainstorming when we were working remotely. I can't recommend it enough. It's free to use for anybody who wants to use it. There are paid versions of course, but they've got a great free plan as well. So
and that's
mini
a good
promotion
point
for Miro.
And I appreciate that. And the other thing too is that we're going to want to remind, and we'll have to put the link to the YouTube recording if people want to at least watch the recording, kind of follow along in the mural board, but also watch the recording of the presentation, take the survey after that, because sometimes when you jump in halfway through, or even if you think you might have missed something if you weren't paying attention, and it's nice to be able to hear that recording again. So I appreciate that we were able to do that, and that you guys were willing to be recorded today.
I record them all the time on meetings so we can remember stuff. They're used to it. Most of the time they know I'm doing it. Sometimes, maybe not. I think you're muted, Brianne.
Once it's up on YouTube, I can actually share it in our application too. So if the grantor wants to see how we conducted community engagement, a lot of these things, like, it's partially marketing for them too. They want to be able to show like, hey, we put on this grant, and then our the people that are filing for the application did these really cool things. They want to be able to show back to their funders how it was done. So
no, that's a good point. Let's include that link. And then I will also talk to Heather and Pete about getting in, and I'm sure we already have it, but I'll just make sure that as a reminder that we get a copy of the links to all the posts that we've done, all of the pages, the URLs to all the pages and everything, so we can include all that, because again, it was such a tight timeline with the basically 2 months, and if you think about it, 4 weeks of holidays, and then coming back to not really coming back, with the pandemic. So I think everything that we can show about how we, tried to reach out is going to be really helpful too.
Great. We've gotten great survey feedback. Angel went around the west side and dropped off flyers in person. I've reached out to various groups on the west side via social media, and they've reposted our materials. Everyone from community groups to the bike hub to coffee shops so I feel like we've done our absolute best, and we have gotten really great feedback thus far. That'll be great for the future of the project. Thank you, Jan. Thanks for joining today. We appreciate all the feedback that you've provided thus far.
And as you've kind of pointed out, Jan, that this is, and several people have, this is just one step along this bike trail and needs for improvement. A lot of the bike trail needs improvement. We've got to start somewhere. So I know, as I mentioned a few times, we are a part of several conversations and projects that are happening in addition to this one, including one, some people might have noticed that, why aren't there more trees along there? We're actually working with the Housing Authority on a granting project to help plant more trees. We're aware of another grant that has been applied for to plant more trees over there. that are ongoing. Those are already awarded and funded programs. So there will be a lot more trees, just not a part of this grant application. This is going to kind of work in concert with those efforts. I saw a couple comments for recycling containers as well. And yes, there will be dual trash and recycling containers for every location.
Thank you, Sophia. We appreciate it. It's fun to get the word out about this project, especially in such a short time frame. From 0 to 100 really quick.
So let's do this, as you guys said, let's keep the meeting open until 3 o'clock, which was our hard out anyway. At about 2:58, if you guys would announce that, we'll take any other chat messages in the written chat messages at that time. But that, the meeting will end at 2. That will be perfect. And then that way we can stop the recording at 3 o'clock and go from there.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
And thank you, Tracy, as well.
And Angel, thank you for giving up your beautiful Saturday afternoon. That was so kind of you.
Yeah, no problem. It was my pleasure. I like doing this.
Well, but we appreciate it. I mean, it's very important. So thank you for being here. This is, for this to succeed, it definitely is a community effort. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
I don't know if this is the time to discuss it or be the instigators of it, but there seems to, what I'm seeing is there's a lot of interest in the Ventura River, and I know, there's Friends of the Ventura River, and then there's other groups. It seems like there needs to be like a coalition that everybody comes together to give all their good ideas, because there's so many good ideas out there. And it's obviously a large stretch of area that has complicated like land use, land ownership, that, it's a complex issue, but there's a lot of great ideas, and where there's great ideas, there's a lot of potential positive change that can happen. So I wonder, if those groups can come together, what would be the right forum for that? It's not just City of Ventura though, it's like cross jurisdiction. Eric, did you catch what Asia said did she say what her group was called?
Yeah, I put it in our OneNote note.
Okay.
And it's actually in the Q&A section. So she's from the Watershed Progressive.
Okay.
She's the creative director.
We worked with her briefly on Miramonte.
Got it.
Brian, we didn't have someone just join and they have a question in the chat.
Yeah, hi Keely. Thanks for joining. You can visit our mural board. Do you mind pasting that, Tracy, in the chat so she can see more details about the project? So Keely, if you visit the mural board link provided, you can see the extents of the trail that we are looking to improve.
It's essentially from where the Ventura River Trail portion of the Ventura River Parkway starts, which is at Rex Dubbers at the south end, clear up to the city limits just north of Sycamore Village through Stanley. So there's about 2.5 miles of the trail.
If you look under number 6, it's like midway on the board. There's a large map that kind of details the different improvements. You see my cursor flying around, yeah, right in that area.
And Keely, feel free to walk through the board from start to finish if you like, kind of read about the project and what we're aiming to do. We're almost out of time for today's thing, but it's kind of a self-directed thing, so you feel free to participate in the activities, placing the dots, and kind of look at the imagery that's there. And as well, some of the links provided will be for the survey for the project, as well as there's a city landing page that will provide more information for this as well. Yeah, there is a little video. It's about a 5-minute video on there that will walk you through the stretch. It's just a ride through of the stretch from Rex Stubbers up to the city limits.
Keely, to answer your question, we haven't, or your comment, we haven't done any historical like research of Chumash use of the site, but the Chumash went where the water was, and this whole area I think was of significance. The whole west side was of significance to Chumash peoples.
The improvements we're proposing are largely replacements of existing features. There will be some digging for foundations and footings for poles and lights, though. That's a good note.
The majority of our project spans over past use of railroad, where railroads were put. The bike trail is majoritively over old railroad. What would you call that, Eric?
It's railroad right of way. It is the old Ventura to Ojai Railroad. So the original trail was constructed in the 90s as a Rails to Trails project, taking over that railroad.
Okay, it's 2:59. Thank you everybody for joining. This concludes our meeting today. If you have any comments or questions, please reach out via the links provided on the city project landing page. And we look forward to reporting back on the results from our application. Have a great day.